I've done like cord cuttings before. I've done journaling and releasing and breath work, but this was like a different pull that was pulling me in to do this, and even created patterns that have unfolded to my relationships from being like 12 to right now. Holy shit, this is where the pattern started. These are the people where these things happen, and I had completely forgotten about them. If you were always fighting for love, you probably never actually gave true love to yourself. And so welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. I'm your host, Carly Pynchon. And if you've never been here before, thank you for being here and listening and just tuning in. I appreciate it so much. I feel like every time I record lately, it's always in a rush. And so I'm like, I run upstairs, I get here and I'm like, okay, just let's start going. And so today I wanted to talk to you about an exercise I did a couple nights ago that I just was feeling pulled to do this. And I've done like cord cuttings before. I've done journaling and releasing and breath work around like releasing ex-partners. Like I've done this multiple times, but this was like a different pull that was pulling me in to do this. And when I went to do this, I went all the way back as far as I could remember. So if you've ever done a cord cutting before, basically the premise of it is that you have energetic ties to any ex-partners that you've ever kind of like exchanged either emotion with, sexually, all the things, like any connection whatsoever to an ex-partner, you can be holding energetic ties to this person. So even if you're happily married now, you could be having these energetic ties, almost like cords. Like I've seen people that have told me like I had a energetic cord still literally tied around my neck, like a noose from one of my exes. I have felt it like where they still have an energetic pull on you. You're still holding stuff. Maybe you're holding memories from things that happened with them, all the things. So if you've never actually taken conscious thought to release them, it can actually impact you in a lot of different ways. And so I did a card pull last weekend, and it just like, it was this one about like the relationship with the masculine. And I felt like I was reading the thing and I was like, okay, funny. Like this is something that I felt like I needed to do for a little while, but I haven't done it. And maybe out of avoidance, I don't know. So I just wanted to share with you guys exactly what that looked like and some of the key things that I realized about myself in doing this, because I went all the way back to elementary school and memories popped up, you guys, that I didn't even know carried a heavy weight on me. And so what I did was I went and I took the time and the space to connect with every single one of these people, these memories that I had, the feelings that I had around them. And it was honestly profound, the impact that some of this stuff I could feel was still impacting me really, really heavily energetically, and even created patterns that have unfolded to my relationships from being like 12 to right now. Like patterns that I was unconsciously kind of just recreating in different scales and spectrums. And this people seem different. Like you hear about this all the time. You hear about people creating patterns and having these things happen, and they just keep recreating it with a new face. And I went, holy, like there was a lot of things that were similar through this entire journey, and I realized it. So I'm going to read you the exercise that I did, just so that in case you guys want to do this, and then maybe write this down as you listen. And then I would encourage you, like, take the time to go do this afterward, regardless of your relationship status. Like, carve out time to do this, because even if you're in a happy relationship right now, there could be all these things that are still lingering and happening behind the scenes. Okay. So this is the forgiveness ritual. Okay. It said, gather a notebook, a pen, and a container. Draw a purification circle around you. You don't necessarily have to do this part. All I did was sit on my bed, take a moment for a deep breath, gather myself and ground myself into what I was about to do. Got a notebook and a pen. Okay. And it says that you can light up a candle if you want, and just sit in calling in the energy of forgiveness in your past relationships and asking yourself these questions. What do you need to let go of? Which grievances? Write them down. And then basically to burn the paper and feel the resentment being purified by fire. And I went a little bit, and then it says to let a feeling of compassion come to you for yourself and for the other. Give thanks, and then blow out the candle, close your circle, and it says, let the cosmos orchestrate the great dance of love once more. Okay, so that's not 100% what I did. Okay, this is just what the card said, and it made me go into wanting to do this exercise. And these are some of the things that I wrote down for myself. Okay, so I guided my sheet by saying release. I wrote release men and feel what it felt like. So I wrote that down in a sense of like, okay, let's release every ex, like boy, man, partner, and feel the feelings of hurt, feel the feelings of each of those names as I say them. What comes up in my body? What do I feel? What does it feel good? Does it feel bad? Am I still holding on to stuff? And so I sat there with it and I would feel it and I'd be like, is there more to feel here? And I would feel it in my body. It would be like a yes. And I'm like, okay. And then I would sit in it and I would try to recall different memories and see what I could pull from that, right? And I did this with every single person. I also wrote down, just to reflect for myself, at what stage is your relationship with the masculine? So if you really think about this, right? Like whether it's the masculine relationship you have within yourself, with the masculine, with a partner, with the men in your lives, like just reflect, like what stage is that relationship? Do you fully trust the masculine, whether it's you or other, to provide, protect, keep you safe, provide security? Do you feel that? Or do you still feel like you have to do it all yourself and like it's only you and you can't really trust other people? Like what stage is your relationship at? And then I run into identifying setbacks and betrayals, and just with each of the people. So I went, okay, what happened with them? Did I feel betrayed by this person? What can I recall from that relationship? And I took the time to sit with every single one of these people. Okay. I've never done this before in my life. It was freaking powerful. And then to sit in with each of the people, forgiving yourself, forgiving the other, and the events that caused you pain. So with every single person, you're going to sit there, you're going to write down the name. You're going to sit and think like, okay, what did this relationship or this interaction with this person feel like? Because for some of you, you've had one night stands, you've had actual relationships, you've had people that maybe like briefly crossed paths with, like even for me, someone I like made out with in a field when I was in grade 8. I even went back to those people and was like, okay, what did I feel in this experience? What was I looking for? Was I looking to get acknowledged? Was I hoping to feel love? Was I hoping that this guy would like me? Like, what was I hoping to get out of this interaction? And I sat in that. And that is vulnerable if you're really willing to go back to, holy crap, like little girl me thought that if I like had made out with this guy or like hung out with him or gave him more of my body, that maybe he'd like me or love me. Like I really, when I strip it all down, ultimately that is what I thought I was going to get out of those situations of overgiving and giving my body. And regardless, I wasn't having sex with lots of these people, but it was sexual interactions. Like you're making out, that's an energy exchange. Like you're giving yourself to that. Whether you guys were touching each other's bodies and you didn't actually have sex, like that's still like touching you. That's a big deal. Like we don't realize how big of a deal that is and how intimate that is. And to give anyone that privilege is a big deal. And for me, ultimately, when I go back to it, it's like I was looking for and hoping, and I'm not even looking for, I just assumed like in an interaction like that, it would mean that they liked you or wanted to like be in a relationship with you, or just I thought it meant more than it obviously did to a lot of these boys. And so when I was reflecting, I did this with every single person. I looked at, okay, what happened? Where did I feel betrayed? And then I sat in it, the feelings that it brought up. And then I sat there and like forgave my younger self in each of these occurrences. So if it was a grade 6 interaction with a boyfriend that ended up like kissing or something, I sat there with like grade 6 version of me and forgave myself, had compassion and understanding for what I was feeling in that moment, what I was trying to get out of the situation, and how I actually felt hurt or betrayed or had pain lingering from those situations and occurrences. Okay. Did this every single one. Then I called in the energy of forgiveness into every past relationship and asked myself, what do I need to let go of? Like what grievances? What do I need to grieve? What do I need to feel? And what do I want to let go of? And I went through every single one and I did this. And then with the burning it and feeling the resentment as you burn it, I just tapped into, because I didn't end up burning anything, I just sat there and I went, okay, do I feel resentment for this situation? And I kind of would ask myself, and if you want to pull in like a pendulum of a yes, no, you could do that too, where for some of them I was like, no, I actually don't feel anything. But for some of these people, I've done a lot of breath work, a lot of letting go, a lot of cord cutting. None of these names have ever re-popped up in my mind, ever, in all the work I've done in the last few years. And some of these people, I was like, holy shit, this is where the pattern started. Like, these are the people where these things happen. And I had completely forgotten about them or even given it much space to be important because they weren't one of my like key boyfriends. And I thought all of my hurt and my pain and my stuff with men came from my boyfriends. And it was like, nope, it was actually a lot of these guys from way before you even had a boyfriend. And I went, whoa, there's a whole new layer of stuff here that I've never looked at. So, these are just some of the things I noticed about myself. I haven't reread this since I did it. So I'm just going to throw this out there. For some of the things that I noticed to show you my patterns. And I want this to be really short because I want you guys to be able to do this exercise. Okay. So the first one, some notes that I had, I was like, okay, I liked boys who didn't have the capacity to like me back or love me. And I attached love stories that weren't real to these people. So it would be like, I like you. And now the love story I see for my life is attached to you, even though you've given me nothing to show me that we have the capacity to do that. The next one, I attached a love story to someone who was unavailable. And I looked back and I was like, I was always waiting for him, hoping he would see me, hoping that he would like give me, like he was older than I was. And I would watch him play his football games and I would go and do all this stuff and like we would hang out. But it was like, I was waiting around for him. And I was like, oh, like that's so sad for little 13-year-old me who, because he was old and cool and like the football player, I was willing to just like hang out and wait. But he hadn't really given me anything to show that it was worth waiting for. Does that make sense? So I'm like, okay, you were in the waiting energy, hoping again for this guy to like notice you or like have this love story play out that you see in movies when like, again, not real. So projecting this love story I have in my mind on these people who have given me nothing to show that they're actually available to give me what I'm kind of like hoping for or looking for, right? Okay. So the next one, I just noticed that like I think this one actually really did like me and care about me, but values wise, it was like there was just such a. It was like, okay, the one who really loved you, but didn't have any money or like was way shorter or like, like all those kinds of things. And so I went, okay, like what made you think that this is just another interesting thing? It's like, did I create a story that like, if someone actually loves me though, they're not the good looking one or the successful one. Only the guys who end up really loving me are not good looking or they're shorter than me because I was always tall when I was younger, especially. Or they're not successful. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just interesting how we can create these stories from these things. And then I noticed like when I got a little bit older, there was one guy who I dated, he actually pursued me. And I realized with almost every single relationship, I have pursued them. So this was rare. And then there's another one who I went back to. I forgot about this guy too, where I was like, I remember sneaking out to go see him, hiding again because he was older. And I don't think he wanted to be seen that he was like hanging out with one of his sister's friends. And so we snuck out, we hid in order to hang out. So obviously not fully available, not really there. I'm like feeling like I need to be hidden, which all the stories that would come from that. And then also like I ended up getting so badly bullied because I really just like liked him. We met because of I was friends with his sisters. We would end up hanging out and I actually was like, wow, I like this guy. Like he's cool. And I ended up getting like being accused. It was the first time I was ever bullied, was this situation where I was called a slut, a whore. I was getting like cyber bullied. I forgot about this. And I was so confused because I was like, wait, they're older. So they're assuming we're having sex. We never had sex. But I'm like, oh, like these people think that I did all this stuff because that's what the older kids do. But I was like badly bullied for it online. And I actually forgot about that because I kind of was just like, oh yeah, whatever, like let it go. But I'm like, dang, like for little grade 8 me, like that's kind of rough to go through. And then again, the hiding. And then because he was so embarrassed by how much like these girls were saying, then he stopped talking to me. And so again, anyways, just like interesting things that I was able to reflect on and go, right? Okay. So I'm trying to understand what I writing says. Um, oh, I'm right with one of these other guys that I assumed because he was big that he'd protect me, but he tried to use my body and take advantage of me when I was drunk. And I realized that part of me started believing that I needed to give my body in order to be worthy or be wanted. How many women can relate to that? That when they ended up having situations where they like actually got intimate with people, it's like you deep down at the root assumed that if you gave your body, you might actually be worthy. It might mean that you're worthy and that they wanted you. And then now all of a sudden we associate that as like love or worth when it's not at all. Like a lot of the times they're not even seeing us for that and they're just using their body for their own pleasure, our body for their own pleasure. Anyways, and then following and then, yeah, so following or pursuing men in order to get noticed. Okay. So then I went back and I was like, okay, for little girl Carly, like I have so much compassion. And then I wrote to myself, like, why did you never feel worthy? And like you needed to seek them out and try so hard. And I was like, what in me used to feel like I needed to do that so hard? So again, like if you go through this exercise, you're going to notice some patterns about you. And then it's like, have the courage to ask those hard questions. Like, what in me needed, like, allowed me to never feel worthy and like needed to pursue these guys and try so hard and seek them out and hope I got noticed. Like, what? And so I was just like, Kate, this is crazy. And then I just wrote more to myself. Like I felt so sorry for her because she was so deserving and worthy of love. I was sweet. I was kind. I was giving. And I wanted to be loved the way that she knew she could love others. Whoa. That makes me emotional. Oh my God. And then I wrote, woo, you guys, when I did this, I was crying so much as I kept going through it. And then at the end, when I got to my ex, like husband, whatever, I was like fighting it. Like I did not want to let it go. Wow. I did not think I was going to cry on here. I was just going to share this exercise with you all. I have an event to get to, but we're going to whip through this, okay? And so I wrote that I was so the way she knows she can love others, and then I'd been searching for that love that I knew existed and the partner that I knew I was going to end up with since I was 6. I can remember being 6, and that's when I started like I can't explain it other than I think part of my life purpose is to be in this relationship and show people how like a beautiful, healthy partnership can and should look and the love that two people can have. And I feel like this is part of my like life's purpose and mission. And so since I was little, it wasn't like a escape thing that I was like chasing and hoping for this relationship. No, like I literally think it's part of my life's purpose and what I meant to do here on this planet. And so I've known this and been searching for it since I was 6. But because I assumed, obviously think of a 6-year-old, they're so like innocent and all they know is love and joy, and they would assume everyone else is good too. And obviously I learned through all of these in like situations with men and boys who didn't know that or were too young to really give that. It's like I had to learn a lot of lessons along the way. And so anyways, I went back and then there was more. I was like, holy crap. Okay, there was this boy and this boy and this boy and this boy and all these boys that I liked that I was always trying to get noticed, like hoping that they would notice me and like me back. Okay. And then there was guys that I was just like, okay, I wrote down that I felt ashamed. I felt violated. I felt used. I felt unseen. I remembered like seeking love, didn't feel it at all. It was like the wrong attention. It didn't feel good. And I remember just noticing how bad that some of the situations felt in my body, but like, I was like, maybe this is what it's like. I don't know. Okay. Then all these guys who I was like, okay, you didn't feel cared about. These people felt like they were trying to use and abuse my body. All these situations. Then it was like this other one, lying, taking advantage of me, getting me drunk, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So all of these things, I just let myself brain dump about every single circumstance and situation. Okay. And then it was like, with one of them, it was like, I felt like he really loved me and cared about me. I never felt used by him, but there was cheating and I needed to let that part of it go. And so then it was like, cut it, like sit there with it, energetic cord, cut it, let it go. And then there was another one and I was like, okay, do you feel resentment? So I did this with every single one. It was like, okay, what do you need to let go about this guy? Okay, I felt abused, used, and unseen. Okay, we need to let that go. Are you ready to let it go? Yes, I'm ready to let it go. I would let it go, like energetically let it go. And then I would ask myself, do you have any built up resentment about that person from that thing? And if the answer was no, I'd be like, okay, we're ready to cut the cord. And I would literally pretend like I was holding an energetic cord up in the air and I would just be like, cut, like a like physical scissors. And then I would cut the cord and release it and actually let it go. Then I went through another one and it was like, okay, there was cheating, there was lying, there was betrayal. If he was mean, he, whatever, all these things that I felt, didn't treat me with love and respect. And then forgiving the little girl me for putting up with it because I didn't know any better. Forgiving myself and him for all the times I was put in really dangerous situations and where like he wasn't there for me. He didn't see me. He didn't see my beauty. He didn't see my value. Like releasing and letting go of that with that partner. And then also giving myself forgiveness. And so I sat there and I went through and I cut every single cord. And then these are just some of the things I wrote that I noticed for myself. I was so busy trying and hoping someone else could see me and love me rather than fully seeing and loving myself. I let people take advantage and assumed good intentions. And then again, I wrote down, where did I learn to chase and work for love and give love to someone who didn't deserve it? And then I started reflecting like, okay, could it be my parents? Like, where is this coming from? And I realized I've been putting effort into men since I was 12, willing to show up for them, give them anything and everything to show them how loving I could be when they should be the ones coming for me and like can come to my door and show up because they want to be with me. Like that's what the natural like nature of a male is. Yet I was always seeking it out and like trying to show like, look how loving and amazing I could be. Like, let me show you how amazing I am when you don't even really deserve to have that treatment yet. Like you haven't proven yourself to me either. And so I was like, holy shit, I've been doing this for more than half my life. If we really go back to 12, I'm like, that is 20 years of my life that I've pretty much been doing that in the majority of my relationships. And so I just wrote like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I still did this even at 30. I was like ready to jump right back into that pattern. And I went, holy, like when is this going to end? And the only time it ends is when you bring awareness to it. And then you realize like, wow, big picture, this is my pattern. Now that I have awareness for it, like we're done with it. We have the knowledge of it. So I can see it the next time it pops up. Like I'm not doing this again. And I had to make that decision within me that like, I am not doing this again. I'm done with it. And it ends now. And it ends with me and I'm not doing it. So if you get anything from this, I want you to know like there's so much value in doing this exercise that regardless of your relationship status, it's just honestly, it felt so healing. And when I got to my most recent partner, boyfriend, husband, everything, it was like, holy, like I did not want to let it go. There was stuff there that I was like, I was like literally like this, like crying. I was like, duh. Like, you know, that image of it's God or Jesus handing over like the little girl. He's like telling her to give her the teddy bear and it's a small teddy bear. And she's like, but I love it. I don't want to let it go. And he has this big, massive one behind her. He's like, just trust me. Give it to me. It was that playing out in full. I was literally like, no, I don't want to let it go. I don't want to let it go. I don't want to let it go. And then I was like, I was still fighting it. And like, I did it, but I honestly don't know if I fully let it go yet. Like to be 100% completely honest, I don't think I fully released it at the capacity that I need to. It's an exercise I'm going to have to do again with him specifically, but with everybody else, it was like, no, okay, good. I'm like feeling it. I'm ready. Okay. We're letting it go. I'm done with that. Okay. I'm feeling it. Ready. We're going through it. Okay. I'm done with that now. And I cut every single one. They also say this is really, really valuable to do if you are single and you're looking to like find your soulmate or like bring in a new partnership, to do this with every single previous partner, because it helps you like come in as a clean slate and like drop all those previous stories before you enter into a new relationship. Because if you're carrying all of that, then what happens is basically you're just going to pull in all of those patterns that you haven't really acknowledged or like felt or released into your next relationship. And I do not want to do that. So I finally did it, sat through, did it with every single one. Okay. And then Then I just wrote like, I forgive me for always feeling the need to go after men. And then I acknowledged like there was a couple other ones where I was like, okay, he pursued me, I gave him a shot. It was something different. And then I just went through just every other partner. And I was like, wow, I feel even more sad with because it kept getting better and better. Honestly, my relationships continued to get better and better from like being toxic when I was younger to a lot healthier as I got older. And I just wrote like, I felt sad thinking about letting go of relationships where there was so much good. Like I actually felt sad about that. Yeah. And then I went through a bunch of different stuff with him, like my ex-husband. And I was like, okay, that one's definitely the hardest to let go. I didn't want to. It felt the most painful of all of them. And yeah, honestly, it was so uncomfortable. I was squirming. So you may have a partner like this, like you're not ready to do it. And I was literally squirming, so uncomfortable, did not want to let it go. And yeah, pretty much that's all I have to say is I realized that in all of my partnerships, I felt like I needed to show my worthiness and hope that they loved me and I would pursue them, which I have talked about on some of the podcasts before. But doing this exercise and having every single male that I've ever had an encounter with that I can recall and remember, like to the people that I had a crush on, to the people that like literally grade 6 crushes, like I went back to all of that. And I wanted to share this exercise because it was unreal and like so incredibly powerful for me. So I wanted to give that to you guys to do this with all your previous partners. And if you want me to re-say just those questions one more time that I wrote down, I feel like they're really, really, really powerful. And if you can come to a conclusion and really start to like, almost like a puzzle, put the pieces back together and realize like, where did I learn this? Where did this come from? And what role have I played in every single previous partnership? Because you're not a victim. Like if you chose shitty, toxic exes, if they all cheated on you, hi, lots of them cheated on me. If you dated people who didn't treat you with love and respect, if you, I don't know, went after these guys that never really gave you attention, it's like, it's all just a mirror for what is happening in here. Okay. So it's like, if you were in all toxic relationships, you were also toxic. Yes. Did you probably get horribly mistreated by all these people? Yes, but it's teaching you something. You likely mistreat yourself. If you never felt seen in relationships, you probably never actually see yourself. If you were always fighting for love, you probably never actually gave true love to yourself. And so that was me. I didn't feel like, I knew I was pretty awesome and great. Like I knew that, but I thought other people had to see it in order for me to feel it. So it was like I was constantly seeking that external validation. Like, oh my God, do you see how amazing I am? Like, do you love me? Because like, look how awesome and amazing I am. So now there's like, of course you're going to love me because I'm the best and you're going to see how great I am. See, can I prove it to you? Like, okay. It's like ultimately the whole time I was seeking love outside myself. It's like I had to give that love to myself first. And when you start to acknowledge this and learn it, it's like you played a role just as much as they played a role. And I've seen lots on social about this where the narcissist and the empath typically always kind of magnetize to each other because ultimately at the core, it's the same wound. So the empath thinks they're so much better and they were so victimized by the narcissist. But on the same token, like you both ultimately are looking for the same thing. It's just showing up differently in the sense that neither of you truly fully love yourself. Neither of you are fully seeing yourself. His shows up in like obviously being selfish and self-centered. And a lot of the time, like hurting the other person. But then as the empath person, it's like you're giving to this person. They don't feel they're worthy, but you also don't feel you're worthy, or else you wouldn't have sought out a narcissist. Does this make sense? If you want to go look into it, it's like actually pretty interesting how much the core wounds are the same. And when you start to see this, it's like you're just attracting what you are. And it shows up in a different way, but it's like all those toxic relationships, you probably had a really toxic relationship with yourself. When you become really healthy in yourself, you're no longer going to attract that stuff. You're not going to be like vibrating at the same frequency as it. So it's not even going to be something that comes toward you. Does this make sense? Anyways, I realized a lot by doing this for myself. It felt so healing to just like release and let go and feel it all. And this is something that I honestly, I don't think I had ever done with a lot of my previous partners from like, especially from childhood, where you're like, I just had a crush. What's the big deal? But I'm like, dang, like I created stories from that. And those stories that I had carried through my entire adult life, all the way until I was dating again, like, and I'm 32. And I noticed it starting to show up with the last two guys that I was kind of talking to, and I went, okay, hold on a second. Whoa. Like, where is this unconscious pattern coming from? Holy, would have never known that that was even there because I was obviously in a relationship for so long. So I didn't even notice that I did this kind of stuff at the beginning. And then it's like, and then you wonder why your relationship ends up the way it is. It's like, well, let's take a look at how it started. Okay. So anyways, I just felt like that was really helpful, and I wanted to share that with you guys in case it's helpful for you too. Also very vulnerable because that was really a lot. And I cried like a baby. I like fought hard. I didn't want to let go. And ultimately I felt like emotional hangover the next day, but I also felt so much better. And I feel like it's like, again, taking these steps to like release all the old stuff that still has its emotional cords and ties to me, and letting it go to create space for what is meant to come in the future. So last, just recap of the questions for you guys, and then we're done here. Go through and it's like an exercise to release men and feel what it felt like in every single relationship circumstance with each of these people, and acknowledge and identify the setbacks and betrayals from each individual person. So write their name and take a moment for each individual one. Close your eyes, sit with it, feel it, and then take a moment to just acknowledge and write down like what betrayals, what caused you pain, what hurt you, do you feel resentment, like all of that stuff. Write it down, and then take the time to have a minute with yourself and forgive yourself, forgive the other, and forgive the events that happened that caused you pain. And then call that energy of forgiveness in to every single past relationship and sit with it for a moment to acknowledge for you, what do you need to let go of? What grievances do you have? Feel it, acknowledge it, write it down, and then let it go. And you can do that with like the cord cutting. You could do it by writing it all down and writing down the resentments, the betrayals, the hurts, the pain, the things that you want to let go of, and burning it. And at the end of it all, just give thanks to yourself, to them, because ultimately they were in your life for a reason, to either show you something, help teach you a lesson, help you develop the skills, help bring the awareness to you that like, hey, you're still doing this thing again. Hey, the reason that you end up in relationships like this is because ultimately it's you. You're attracting it. Why are you attracting it? Like, it's all meant to teach you something. And then just giving thanks and blowing it out, either whether you blow out the candle or you whatever you want to do to just like close it out and give thanks. But it was a really, really powerful exercise for me. And so I wanted to share that with you guys because I know there are people who listen to this and maybe you've been married or in a really long-term relationship, or you've had some seriously tumultuous relationships throughout your life. Regardless of your relationship status right now, I cannot emphasize enough how powerful this would be to do if you had an evening to do it with yourself. Give yourself an hour or two, sit in it, feel it, let it go. Because ultimately, you could be married and you could have serious resentment that you're holding on to from a past relationship. And by doing this, like, you're releasing stuff that's sitting in your body energetically that can still lead to disease, even though there's separation and you're do you think I've even thought about the grade 6 person ever pretty much in my life since then? No. But the fact that I have these like really emotionally charged memories that showed up, I was like, dang, that shit has been sitting in my body for over 20 years. And I had no awareness that it was even still there until I brought the awareness to it and felt all of that. And the only way that you know that you've really felt it all is like, it should not emotionally charge you with that much deep emotion when you think about it again. And I was like, I'd never actually sat in those emotions and acknowledged them, because when I was little, it was like, you felt them and I was sad and then I'd get over it. But I was like, no, I never really like held compassion for me, the version of me who was a part of that. And so doing that was wildly powerful. And I feel like was creating space and releasing more and more emotional weight that I've been unknowingly holding on to for a really long time, like multiple decades. And ultimately, it's where a lot of my patterns and relationships stemmed from, was then. And not doing this exercise, I wouldn't have acknowledged all of that. So wildly helpful, cannot emphasize it enough. Go do it. Remember this, sit with it. Take a moment and watch how you feel the next day. I would love for you to message me if you do this. The memories that are going to pop up, you're going to be like, holy heck, I forgot about that. Completely forgot that that was even a thing. So leaving you guys with that. Thanks so much for listening. And yeah, it's a heavy exercise, but a powerful one. So enjoy. Thanks for being here.